I think it is time that we try and move away from race when we respond. Because the moment we also use race, we are also falling into the same trap. I think the one thing that we need to bear in mind specifically is that these types of remarks, unfortunate as they are, they do bring us something. They do inform us that something within our community, society, is happening, so that we don't forget that we still have a few individuals, which I think they are in the minority, who still have this racial hatred in them, be it white or black, and that we must never forget about it. In other words, as the community, how do we think we need to move forward to address this remaining issue? You will remember a week ago there was a debate between the two bishops, Bishop Tutu and Bishop Mahuba, on this issue of are we an angry nation? And they have made suggestions to say, look, maybe we need to engage in a dialogue. And I must commend the people who have reacted the way they did, for instance, in the case of Jessica, because they've already shown that we cannot tolerate this type of action. And it is equally important, therefore, that we call on everybody, the community, to say where we see racial speeches and discrimination, and then we react immediately, so that people must begin to realize that if I behave in this particular...
Kali Kriel, in terms of, we've heard the response from Advocate Mshwana. How should, in your opinion, we be dealing with hate speech aside from the prison issue?
Well, I think, unfortunately, even though it's a minority, I think hate speech is prevalent. But of course, it's not in the Human Rights Commission's ability, it's also not in the court's ability to take on every single one. But I think in the first place, we should look at the leadership in our country and to make sure, especially when political leaders with a large constituency makes themselves guilty, that they are made an example of. And that is what we, for instance, did in the Julius Malema case. But then in terms of when it happens on other levels, I think we should make sure that we use it as an opportunity to open up discussions and to make sure that we send out a strong message to people. If you are angry, there are many ways within the framework of the law in which you can vent your anger and make sure that you put the issues on the agenda that's important to you. But I think to start using racist language is counterproductive, and it always creates a backlash in the sense that if you look at what happened here, I also saw research that was done that's also today in the newspapers, which said what it monitored the Twitter speaking, and in some terms of Jessica's case, twice as many people reacted to the TD case. And I think that also shows a problem, that we have this kind of selective morality where you say, well, only whites can be racist. And I think that creates further divisions. And what from AfriForum side, we don't want to go into this debate to say, but you never react like this when a black person does this. I think we should be consistent to tell all people react in the same way, irrespective of where it comes. And then this won't become a political tool to get at one another. Then we can be united to say, let's respect one another. I'm not saying we should not differ. A robust debate is important. But whenever we conduct that debate, make sure that it's based on sound arguments and you don't infringe or hurt people's feelings or infringe the dignity of people.
Thanks. Advocate, does the Human Rights Commission have aggressive enough programs to combat racism?
I don't know what will be aggressive enough because, these things are not... You don't meet them on a day-to-day basis where you are able to confront them. But in terms of our own programs, as I've already indicated, we can be how aggressive, as I've indicated earlier on. We need to educate society. We need to educate community. We need to appeal to the leadership. I agree with AfriForum that people holding leadership positions should take the lead. And somebody mentioned about rushing through reconciliation. I wanted to say maybe the Truth and Reconciliation was stopped rather abruptly before it deals with the real issues. Because here we're dealing with people who have got access to the media who can tweet. We have never asked ourselves the question of what about the silent majority of the people who are not even here? They hear about these issues and the anger there, we don't even know how angry those people are. And that tells you that we still have a bigger problem. And that's why as a commission we say, look, we need debates like this ones where we are going to share information to improve what we are already starting to do. Because we don't have ready-made answers. We need experienced people who are dealing with justice and reconciliation, people who are involved in the Truth and Reconciliation, and that is our intention to rob part of these institutions, because the answer will not be coming from us as the Human Rights Commission only, but it will come from all African societies, individuals, leadership, talking and addressing this issue. Because as I've indicated, this is not an issue that you can wake up one day and think it is over. It is just a big question, like we have got the fight, the struggle for economic liberation in this country. So racism is there, and because it was institutionalized, it's not getting out of all of us. Blacks are angry, whites are angry, to think that racism now is racism in reverse. So we have got this particular problem, which the two bishops have said, look, maybe we need to call a forum where we can ask for forgiveness. Whether that in itself alone will achieve anything, it's an open debate. But for me, it is a step. It's one of the steps that can be taken. And I haven't had anybody carrying forward this. And the question is, who should lead the process? Maybe that's what we as a commission will also want to hear. Advices from those who are listening to this program as well.
Both Bandile and Ramadunwane are making reference to the issue that you raised of selective morality. One of the interesting issues that Bandile brought up was transformation is seen differently by different races, and he was also struggling to reconcile what you meant by selective morality, Kali, when you talked about, and he'd like to know from you, how many cases has AfriForum taken to court, and that being of white racists, and the very same issue coming up with Ramadunwane in terms of how is AfriForum dealing with the symptoms of racism?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I must firstly state that I believe that the reaction that we hear from Bandile is based on stereotypes. And unfortunately, we have a stereotype in this country. If an organization like AfriForum has an Afrikaner origin, then that organization cannot play a constructive role and be consistent in its condemnation of racism. You know, people want to keep alive this AWB kind of stereotypes, while the fact is only a small fringe group are radical or extremists, and we are in the middle ground with regard to this issue. And I can give examples to him. We are on record that we've come out strongly against people using the K word, white people doing it.
Have you taken them to court?
I'll come to that point now. For instance, Darren Scott, for instance, a situation where black people were put as baboons on a picture. And in terms of the Commando Corps, which we saw the other day, that have a twisted ideology that they are enforcing on young people. We came out strongly on all those issues. What happened in the Malema case, because I believe he would say, well, we've taken Malema to court, but not, for instance, Darren Scott. Our position is when people apologize, then you work with that. And we've given Julius Malema the opportunity to apologize, to say we believe this is not right. Our youth wing went to Lutuli House to speak to Julius Malema to say this, what you are doing is hurtful and it's not right. We want you to stop. We did not simply just go to court. And then what happened is they were met with arrogance. They were actually threatened to say, well, if they're going to march on the Tule House, it would be the same as when the IFP marched on Shell House. So they were threatened. And that's why we went to court.
But I don't want to have an issue of he said, she said, and look at the different cases. When it comes to the issue of Darren Scott, are you saying that if they apologize, that's fine and you weren't going to take it further?
Well, then you can't take someone to court because that's what most court cases are, to say, well, people should recognize that they are wrong and they should apologize.
But what are the consequences of that case? Because you've got a celebrity with a following.
Yes, and he resigned, he lost his job, he had huge penalties, and you can work with that apology. Apology also sends out the message to the society as a whole to say, I was wrong and this should not happen. And the same is, we will not take TD, the model, to court simply because she's black and leave Jessica. Both of them have apologized. I don't think we should work with the apology that TD sends. It's very helpful, and I want to commend TD for apologizing, and I want to commend Jessica for apologizing, because it sends out the message that people realize you cannot say kill white people, you cannot say black people and use the derogatory K word. So we are very happy about the apologies, and it's something we can work with.
Advocate Mshwana, you've been listening to some of the responses from our callers as well as some of the Facebook responses coming through at this time. I'm very interested to find out, from the cases that you've dealt with and the work that your commission has done, who perpetuates racism and why?
Yeah, I think if we move away from the blaming tactic, because as I was listening to the arguments, part of the problem why we don't get to deal with real issues is this issues of trying to blame, it is the white, it is Julius, it is all of that. And in the process, we lose the real issues that we have to confront.
Kate is from the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation. You know, one of the issues that Advocate Mshwana brought up is this culture of reconciliation. We seem to have a blame game and not really confronting the issues. My question to you, Kate, particularly from the work that the Institute has done, does it seem that reconciliation has come to an end with the TRC process?
Definitely, we have seen that there has been progress in a lot of aspects of reconciliation. And, for example, we do see that there's more positive evaluations of kind of race relations and improvements between different groups since 1994. I think our survey, which we conduct every year in the country, also shows that disapproval of integration, for example, as the caller was saying, in schools, interracial marriages in neighborhoods, and so forth, it's moderate to low. So I think, as I said at the beginning, there is room for optimism. And there is also evidence that there's kind of increased level of contact and socialization between different groups in the country. But I think all of these incidents show that there is, racism does exist still. It's a much bigger picture than we're getting from just this Twitter interaction. And I think there is some cynicism now, and I think we've heard that from the callers this morning as well, about how we've dealt with reconciliation, how we've dealt with the past. And I think one of the issues we really need to look at now is kind of how we come up as South Africans with more progressive spaces where we can have really frank, constructive conversations about these issues